Swimming was my sport when I was in middle and high school, and all those years of spending early mornings and late nights at swim practice made me a strong and confident swimmer. So, when I was volunteering in Costa Rica, a mere 6 years after high school graduation, I really didn't have any fear of water. But being a native Michigander, I was also completely naive about the complexities of the ocean. Because let's face it, our lakes are big, but oceans are just bigger. Early in my time there, my brother came to visit for a month, and one weekend we went to Manuel Antonio National Park. It's on the Pacific coast and it's stunningly beautiful, with cliffs and islands and rock formations whose very existence depends on, in large part on the ways in which the water smashes against the rocks. We wanted to go for a swim in the ocean, so we walked down to the beach on the northern side of the peninsula that juts out into the ocean. Unlike the southern side, we didn't have to pay to go there, and since my brother was a college student and I was a volunteer, we were very happy to save every penny by going to the free beach. So we were enjoying jumping the waves while pretty much everyone else around us was surfing. We were out pretty far, floating and chatting, and then a huge wave came and crashed over me, and I got pulled down. I hit the sandy bottom, and I could feel myself being pushed down by the water, and a strong, confident swimmer, couldn't get myself up on my own. When the wave let up and I surfaced, I realized that no one else was around anymore. They knew the tide was too strong and that it was time to go in. My brother and I both realized that we needed to get out of the water, so we used the next wave to get closer to shore and then fought our way back to the beach. What we found out later, by the way, was that on the other side of the peninsula where you have to pay, it was really a calm beach. I guess you have to learn some things the hard way. The disciples were understandably scared when their little boat was being bashed about in a storm, and understandably unsettled when they saw Jesus walking on top of the stormy sea. Let's notice that Jesus could have gone ahead and calmed the storm with just one word, like he did back in chapter 8 when he was with the disciples in the boat together. But Jesus didn't calm this storm. He didn't simply take away the difficulty. Perhaps Peter volunteered to join him because he wanted to prove himself. And perhaps knowing that Peter would ultimately have to weather a lot of other storms in his life, Jesus did call Peter out into the storm, not to weather it alone, but to weather it together. To be fair, the boat wasn't a great place to be either. It may have been a place of relative safety, but it was being battered by the storm, and it was being pushed farther and farther out from where the disciples wanted to be. Storms can, of course, also sink boats. Peter would have been a strong swimmer. He was a fisherman, so he knew the sea. He might not have spent mornings drilling butterfly, but he certainly knew how to keep himself afloat. That didn't matter. The storm was too much for him, and he was sinking. Peter had every expectation that he was prepared to face the challenges in front of him. He had every reason to believe that he would have no problem weathering this storm. And yet, he was sinking. Have you ever had a time when you thought you were totally ready for something big, and then it turned out you were in over your head? Overwhelmed, feeling like there was no way out? Peter had every preparation he could have hoped for in this situation, but the waves were still too strong. He was being pulled under, but he also realized he couldn't do all of this on his own. And Jesus wasn't asking him to. Jesus pulled Peter out of the waves that were threatening to take him down to the depths, saving Peter from his own overconfidence, his own desire to prove himself worthy and maybe even equal with Jesus. Because that's not what God asks of us. Storms happen in life just as certainly as calm, beautiful days, and we are called to weather them, not by ourselves, but with God's help. In a society and system where we're often told that independence is the most important quality we can possess, Jesus reminds us that we don't have to do it all on our own. We're called to be in relationship with one another because God is in relationship with us, being right there with us in the storms that come our way, reaching out to pick us out of the water when we're drowning. That doesn't mean that life can't give us more than we can handle. But it does mean that when life gives us too much, it's a whole lot better when we let ourselves lean on each other a little bit. And when we have the strength, we let others lean on us too. When Jesus pulls Peter from the water, the disciples proclaim that he is the Son of God, something that is echoed later by the centurion as Jesus dies on the cross. For the disciples and for the centurion, Jesus' identity is most evident not in large acts of power, but in the way he shows up for ordinary people. That's how God enters our lives too, in the ways we show up for each other, in the ways we support each other in the most difficult times we face. None of us is called to be God, of course, but God works through our hands, allowing us to help pull each other up when we're falling. Today's gospel reminds us that no matter how big the storm is, we're never really alone. And we never have to face it alone because Jesus is always with us. And that is really, really good news. Amen.